Look, Ben Neal's back. Ben Neal is always enlightening us, and I am very thankful, as we all should be, for Ben coming in at the last moment. Like we uh, we needed somebody, and Ben was there. That's really great. So you're going to talk about the sweet embrace of grace. I like that. Uh,
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds great. Ben is a poet, a musician, a writer, a student of many religions and wisdom traditions. He lives in Kansas City with his partner, his son, and three beautiful dogs. Ben, just before you came on, we were sharing our own dogs here. We next time you're here, we'll ask to see yours. And so, Ben, welcome and take it away.
Well, thank you very much, Jeff. It's so great to be back with y'all. It's always a pleasure. My apologies for those that weren't around earlier. We had some music lined up, but technical difficulties are just requiring us to go a different direction. So we're going to move straight into the talk, and this just gives me an opportunity maybe to dive a little bit deeper into the weeds, and maybe we'll spend a couple of extra minutes in meditation at the end too. So we'll squeeze the juice out of it. So earlier this year, I found myself hunting for a new job by choice. Thankfully, I'm still employed, but things were not going well. Uh, there was some conflict in the office that was creating a lot of hostility in the environment, some supply chain issues that were causing a lot of extremely upset customers. I could go on, but I'll spare you the litany of complaints. The long story short is I updated my resume and I started testing the waters. I had decided it was time for me to move on after a couple years with this company. But it turns out that the job market is pretty rough out there at the moment. I lined up several interviews, but I got no offers, at least nothing that lined up well with what I need. And after a few months of this, I found myself really sort of caught in a frustrating cycle. I'm sure some of you can relate. It's like the more problems I had at work, the more eager, one might say desperate, I became to leave. The more desperate I became, the more I was applying for jobs that probably weren't a right fit anyway, which just led to more rejection, disappointment, uh, and then the more frustrated and desperate I become, and so the cycle continues, right? You just feel sort of stuck in limbo. You're not happy where you are, but you don't know where to go. One foot in, one foot out. And then several weeks ago, I luckily came across this teaching called the Tenzo Kyokan. This is a book written by Zen Master Dogen. He was the founder of the Soto Zen school in Japan. And when Dogen was a young monk, he traveled to China to study from all these different Chan monasteries. A brief aside on Buddhist history: the Zen school started in China and was called Chan, and it was Dogen and other monks from Japan who traveled there to study and brought these teachings back to Japan, where it later became known as Zen. And Dogen was one of those founding uh, monks and teachers and Zen masters. So he traveled to China as a young monk and lived there for several years, traveling around to different monasteries, studying with all these different Chan masters. But it turns out some of the most profound lessons that he received and wrote about were not from monks and teachers, but from the monastery cooks, which are the word for that is tenzo. So the tenzo kyokan means instructions to the cook. One instance is Dogen just arrived in port. He's on a boat and he meets this old monk, 60 some years old, who's just walked 14 miles to buy mushrooms to take back to his monastery to cook a meal. And Dogen says, "It's so wonderful to meet you. You've walked so far. Won't you stay and sit and have tea with me, and we'll talk about the Dharma?" The monk says, no, 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 I'm afraid I must leave right away if I'm going to get back in time to cook the next meal. And Dogen says, well, surely there's someone else in the monastery that's capable of preparing a meal. And the monk looks at him and says, other people are not me. In just sort of a mysterious Koan statement. And, Dogen's scratching his head. Well, being Tenzo is a hard job. Why are you still working so hard at your advanced age? Is there something special about being Tenzo? Does it benefit your Dharma practice somehow? And the old monk says, my foreign friend, you don't yet understand the true meaning of practice. And so that sort of sets his mind reeling. That's one of those awakening moments that he has in dealing with these old cooks. He tells another story in another monastery where he sees another old man bent over in the hot sun tending the garden, and he says the sun is so hot that the tiles burn your feet. And he asks the old monk, he says, why are you out here working in the heat of the day like this? And the Tenzo looks at him and says, if I don't do it now, when else can I do it? And anyway, so the Tenzo Kyokan is full of these mysterious little stories like this, but it's also full of insightful advice into how to turn one's daily work and chores into a spiritual practice and experience sort of a joyful ease as you go about these tasks. And it's also worth mentioning, just it points to the nature of Buddhism, that it's also full of really practical advice of how to cook and how to run a kitchen. Because, in Buddhism, spirituality is not thinking about God while you peel potatoes, it's just peeling the potatoes, right? So Dogen comes back. He founds the Soto Zen school. He writes this book. And one of the first things I read in there that really caught me is he talks about how we often go through our day caught up in the fog of a self-centered dream. And that was like a doctor's diagnosis of how I had been feeling in my work and in my daily life. Caught up in a fog of a self-centered dream created by our thoughts, our judgments, our preferences, aversions, our likes and dislikes. So it's like we get caught up in a story that we're telling ourselves, the ego narrative, the thinking mind, where we are the main character of the story at the center of the action, and everything sort of revolves around little old me. In this story, some jobs are important and worthwhile, and some jobs are a waste of time. Some people are friendly and professional, others are rude or annoying. Some people are knowledgeable and diligent, some people are lazy and inept. All these judgments, all these thoughts. But underneath it all, there's this underlying resistance to what is reality as it is right now. Something feels off, something feels wrong, something is missing. This is not the way it should be. So Dogen warns us not to be pushed around by our likes and dislikes. He says that even though there may be differences in seniority, intelligence, character, ability, etc., all are treasures of the Sangha. All are treasures of the Sangha. He goes so far as to say that you should not treat someone differently based on whether they've been ordained for many decades or for one day. That if you change how you treat someone based on these things, you have missed the point of the practice. And even though there may be right or wrong, do not cling to these judgments. And I love that statement. Do not cling to these judgments. He's not denying the reality of right and wrong, but dwelling on it in our minds, clinging to these judgments, identifying with these stories. It's that clinging that keeps us stuck in a state of consciousness that is frustrating and unsatisfactory. And when we can release these judgments, we can open up to a new state of consciousness. We can shift. Another thing that Dogen says that has really been transformative for me is he talks about our connection to the Buddha, and you can substitute anything here. Our connection to spirit, our connection to the divine, is born of the smallest offering made with sincerity. So he's talking to the Tenzos. So he talks about, the ingredients in the kitchen and preparing the meal with this diligence that you do not want to waste a single grain of rice. And you want to treat each ingredient as if it was being prepared for a meal for the emperor. That you can top off the dish with a single, an edible flower or a sprig of an herb, and just make that little gesture is an offering that opens you up to the Buddha nature that is always there. And this applies to obviously more than just being a cook. So whether it's just a smile that you offer someone else, a kind word, a friendly greeting, whether you are sweeping the floor or shipping a package or bagging somebody's groceries, it can be done as an offering and an act of service that can open us up to our connection to the divine and to each other, and enliven the little moments of our day-to-day lives with a deeper sense of meaning and sacredness. He instructs the Tenzo to treat everything as if you were a parent taking care of a small child, to approach each task with that sense of caring and affection and attention to detail, as if you were caring for your own infant. That there is nothing unimportant or unworthy of our attention. He also says, treat everything as if it were the body of the Buddha. And that this allows the body of the Buddha to manifest. And I find that statement very provocative as well, because there's sort of a paradox here. On the one hand, elsewhere in the document, he talks about how the Buddha nature is true, eternal, transcendent, that it's just reality as it is, whether we're aware of it or not. And at the same time here, he is suggesting that our participation in the Buddha nature is important, that it's necessary for us to see it, to recognize it, to sort of coax it out, to allow it to manifest. That when we open our eyes, our hearts and minds to that transcendent perfection that's always there, we somehow, join in the process of that divine unfolding, and we're co-creating with it. He says that this is a power that cannot be understood by the rational mind. And I just love that dancing with paradox that is inherent in Zen, in meditation, and really in all spiritual practice. That the truth, on one hand, everything is perfect, just as it is, right here, right now, in this moment. And yet, at the same time, there is the reality, for so many of us, so often, of, suffering or anxiety, discomfort, boredom, sadness, grief, joy, pain. All of these experiences are present. And there's the desire to, relieve suffering, my own and others. There is that dance between acceptance, loving and accepting and embracing reality as it is, versus of being called to take action, to change what I can change. You know, there's the famous prayer, God give me the strength to endure what I can, and the courage to, or the courage to change what I can, and the wisdom to, the patience to accept what I cannot change, and the wisdom to know the difference. There is a sort of paradox between effort and surrender, that a surrender has to be sort of voluntary, participatory, that to surrender is not the same as giving up, that to give up and stop trying misses the mark. And I know that I have done this before in the past in my spiritual practice, to sort of rest on the knowledge that, oh, everything is perfect and everything is fine, so it doesn't really matter if I skip my meditation today. But that's giving up. That's not surrendering. That's not participating in the divine unfolding. And a phrase that Dogen uses that I find really powerful is the metaphor of turning the wheel while being turned by it at the same time. Really sort of puts the finger on this dance of surrender and action and co-creation. He sums up at one point by saying, simply working as the Tenzo is the incomparable practice of the Buddhas. He's pointing here to the fact that enlightenment and ordinary consciousness are not different. That the Buddha nature is always there. It is the simple feeling of being, the simple, pure awareness and aliveness that we are never separate from. Simply being a cook or a cashier or a janitor, or in my case, the warehouse manager, this is the way to liberation, at least when done with the right state of consciousness, with the right approach and attitude, when you do the work as an act of love and service, as an offering made with sincerity. Washing the dishes, working in the garden, folding the laundry, simply going about your life, doing what is yours to do. This is the incomparable practice of the Buddhas. Now, as I have tried to bring these practices to bear in my workplace, I will admit that I haven't had a whole lot of transcendent experiences. And the problems that were driving me crazy to begin with haven't gone away. But what has gone away, at least in large part, is that underlying sense of frustration and desperation. What has subsided is that voice in my head, the sob story, poor me, and all the judgments and the negative reactions and the stories that I'm telling myself about, you know, how this isn't right. This is not how it should be. All these things, this mental fog and noise can fall away. I may not be able to, walk through every day or every moment of every day with a sense of sacredness, but I do find it that I can tune into a place of joyful ease. This is another term that Dogen uses a lot. He talks about the practice as the Dharma gate of joyful ease, where you sort of enter in the flow and you're not resisting what is. They also refer to this as being wholehearted or undivided, because really, what is there to resist but ourselves? When we are resisting what is, we are resisting a part of ourselves, as we are one with each other, one with all that is, woven into the fabric of the universe just as surely as the grass and the trees and the flowers. So to be wholehearted, to be undivided, to love and accept what is in this moment, including what's happening inside myself, my thoughts, my feelings, the the ideas, the judgments, the reactions, uh, to witness them and allow them the same way we allow, the weather. Or uh, you can look at several different trees of the same species, and you don't feel necessarily called to judge them or critique them or compare them. This tree is more beautiful than that one, or more perfect, or more upright. We can just look at it and accept it for what it is, as it is. I love this. Doug in the newsletter this week quoted from the Tao. Um, the Tao hides behind all forms, stubbornly nourishing the paradoxes that enlighten us. And I just absolutely love that, because in all forms, in all moments, in all situations, the Tao is there. And when we live with these paradoxes and contradictions, when we dance between them and work with them and allow them to expand us, it breaks down our limiting thoughts and beliefs, and it invites us into a lived experience that is beyond what words can say or what the mind can conceive of. And that is what I mean by grace. It is what cannot be achieved, what cannot be forced, what can only be allowed, what can only be felt and experienced. To enter into this space, we have to be comfortable with not knowing. We have to embrace the fact that the mind is too small to comprehend the infinite. The mystery does not make sense. If I can think it, if I can conceive it, if I can imagine it, then I've missed the mark. That's too small. I have to get out of my head and into my body and into this moment and into the flow. I have to learn to trust what is beyond my own understanding, what is beyond myself. I'll step out of my comfort zone and be vulnerable. A lot of times this means trusting other people. You're entering into communion and cooperation with others, the world, with the universe, with the Tao. And I don't know how it's going to unfold from moment to moment. I don't know where the process is going to take me, but I have to make that first step of trust and faith, opening up and saying, yes, okay, I will co-create with you. This is what you need from me in this moment. Yes, I will do it. I will give it, and have faith that there is something bigger than me, something that connects us all, that is immediately going to work in that situation. We're allowing the divine, the Buddha nature, to manifest through these circumstances and conditions. I have to learn to embrace what is imperfect in myself, in others, in the conditions in which I find myself. I have to embrace my fundamental humanness. How I repeatedly slip up and fall back into that fog of the self-centered dream, because it does happen over and over and over again. For years and years and years and years, I've been studying and practicing, and I still find myself getting caught up in the narrative, and getting living from day to day and moment to moment from a state of consciousness that is, frustrated, depressed, anxious, unhappy with what is and how things are. But each time we notice that that's happened, each time we remember, yeah, I don't have to stay here. I can release these thoughts, these judgments, this story. Just in that one instant, we're free to shift, to go a different direction. Or really, we have a choice. Each time that instant of noticing arises, you can kick yourself if you want to. You can continue to resist what is, to judge yourself, critique yourself, to continue to struggle and strain and strive to force things, or you can relax. We can embrace our clumsy, forgetful, imperfect human nature and just breathe and settle into our present lived experience. And that's when the shift happens. What I'm learning again and again and again is there will never be the right time, the perfect time, when everything is perfect, the to-do list is all crossed off, the messes are all cleaned up, the loose ends are all tied up neatly once and for all. There's always something unfinished. There's always something to be done. There's always something I would change, something that could be better or different. But there will never be a moment that feels complete any more than this moment right now. There is no destination that I'm heading towards, no place to go, no goal, nowhere to stand or rest, no finish line, other than right here, right now. And when we embrace this moment and all its messiness, when we embrace ourselves with acceptance, with surrender, with compassion, then we open ourselves up to that experience of grace. When we get the little self, the ego mind out of the way, we can become the instrument of grace. When we embrace and say yes to life, we are embraced. As we give, so it is given. There is a divine presence, a divine love that is infinite, unconditional, and eternal. A peace that passes all understanding. It is always here, even when we forget. But through the smallest act of kindness, service, and care, we tap into it. We allow that divine love to manifest in us, through us, and as us. And that's when we experience the sweet embrace of grace. I'd like to invite you all to join me in meditation, if you would. Wherever you're at, make yourself comfortable, whatever that looks like. Cross-legged or feet on the floor. Relax your hands. Let your awareness just sort of sweep through your body momentarily and become aware of any points of tension or discomfort. And just feel it. Just notice it. Take a deep breath. And as you exhale, feel yourself entering the flow. You're relaxing. You're releasing tension and resistance. You're allowing breathing to happen. You're allowing the heart to beat, blood to flow. No resistance. We invite and allow the experience of divine love and grace right here and right now. We know that we are in the presence of the one power, the one life, the one spirit and consciousness that connects us all across different points in time and space. Whether you're watching this recording sometime in the future, no matter where you are in the world right now, we are all right here, right now, together in the presence of the one, the infinite, divine love. So we just relax and breathe and allow in the silence. And as we come back to this meeting, come back to the room or our surroundings, let's do so with gratitude, giving thanks for the grace that cannot be earned but is always freely given as we accept it and allow it and embrace it. Let's give thanks for this time together, for this spiritual community that provides us this opportunity and this time to share and learn and grow together. Thank you, God. Amen.
Thank you, Ben Neil. Wow. I thankful to hear words that describe the conflict that make it that make the conflict real and not made up, and to be able to embrace it and see it in different ways. And that's just that's what I heard you say, and adjust to whatever is happening with that. Thank you. That was wonderful. Wonderful.